Hello and welcome to another vlog. Today we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different um, with an image. This is an image of a tulip which I photographed about a week ago. Nice white background, this nice closed tulip. And today I'm going to do a manipulation to the image, which is a bit of a Fox SX-70 manipulation when you used to when you're taking the picture on the Polaroid, you could then manipulate onto the Polaroid itself. It's quite a nice technique and it's quite fun. So we have this base image. You have to really start the image at 8-bit because we're going to be using an artistic filter, which will not work at 16-bit. And also, it can't be a smart object because of the first thing we're actually going to do, manipulation-wise, is actually going to be uh, can't actually be done within a smart object. So the first thing I did is actually I chose the film color because it's SX-70. That's what I chose in the end. I chose more slightly browner highlights. This is from Alien Skin Exposure 4, which is quite good for emulating film stock. Now we have the coloring. I duplicated the layer, and duplicating the layer. This is what I can do. So this is going to be the manipulation layer. And this is sort of the bit which is slightly artistic in method. And so I just went to liquify. In liquify, I went to the advanced mode. I changed the brush density to 100. The brush pressure was already at 100, and I put the brush size at 150. And what I did is I looked at the flower and I looked at the sort of contours in each petal, and I decided that I'd use this as my guide for my strokes. Normally, when you're doing some film, you use like a blunt object and you push forward the emulsion. So in the lens warp, I used push forward as well. It does look a bit clunky at first, and really you got to sort of think in your mind how you would do this. I actually prefer to do this quite quickly, without too much sort of going, okay, I'll do this here and then I'll do that there, because I want to sort of copy the way or the method that I would have used if I was using the film stock. Normally, when you do on film, they do say not to have like a lot of blank space around an image, but I think with what I'm going to do with the final outcome, it sort of works like with this. What you can do is you could obviously change the brush size if you wanted to, and go and do really fine details if you wanted to. That's absolutely fine. I'm just doing very sort of broad strokes on this. Just sort of get the feel of the shape, and it's the shape which I'm looking for in this particular image. I don't really want to have these sort of like gaps missing, because when you push it, you can actually make a gap in the image. I don't really want that so much. I just sort of just want to have the shape, and then inside a shape again. So it is quite a delicate piece of work. Obviously, depending on your file size, depends on how quickly it will render as well. I think some of the things with like manipulation, people normally say, "Oh, well, you could just use the film. You know, why don't you use film instead of emulating it?" Well, I quite like the idea of using the film, but also when you go out and shoot with film, if you haven't got the right film, it can sort of be a bit of a downer to actually miss a moment. And I think this is one of the things with digital. I know there's been a bit of controversy about the new lomography aerochrome film, and they've really just put a purple filter over the film. And there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, wait, you just go and you can just do this. It's just like a Photoshop filter." And I sort of agree. It is a bit like a Photoshop filter, but lomography's become less of what it was like at the beginning. It's become quite a business sort of thing now. It's not so much people going out and having fun. It seems that it's just people doing stuff for the style, and it's a bit in fashion at the moment. So I'll have to see what happens when it goes out of vogue. I remember seeing this manipulation only a few times. Actually, I don't think this is really popular. to do. But then again, I think like photo manipulation in Photoshop has like is a two-edged sword. There's one-time manipulation which is quite good and can look quite artistic if you in following in the steps of the traditional photography. And then there's some Photoshop techniques where the image just looks very, very fake. And that sounds quite strange saying that it looks very fake, but it's one of those things that although this image will look like it won't look like a real image, it won't look like a real Polaroid image at the end. I'm emulating the feel. I'm not really wanting it to be that. I think that's what I would say. Whereas other people, when they do these sort of photo manipulations, um, they're depicting this as real, and I think that's where the sort of difference sort of comes with manipulation itself. And I think there's a very fine line between doing something and going too far. I think that's what I would like to, that's what I would sort of say about photo manipulation itself. I think I know especially with the recent World Press Awards, there's been some talk about the manipulation of the photographs in Photoshop. But the images have a feel to them which is not of like a not of real. I know the winning image does has a lot of like I guess quite a good dynamic contrast, and it looks very HDR. And I know there's another one that the lighting in it is a bit too perfect for the scene, and it looks like they had a full lighting setup for this funeral procession. Um, and it is a bit disconcerting when you have that impress photography. I know that I've written about the use of Instagram and iPhone images and these filters. Does it change the context of the image in using it? Now I just changed the brush size, went a little bit bigger for the stem. I didn't want the stem to be as sort of detailed in a way. I just wanted the stem just to have a quick brush up, brush down type feel. As you saw as well, I did use a smaller brush just for a little bit of fine detailing in the pedal itself. And you can see at the bottom here, I've actually pulled this up, so I'm actually going to go back down and push it back down again. I don't really want to have that sort of look. So have a look at it in full screen. Okay, so that's what I've got. I'm a bit concerned about this corner here. It looks a bit too defined, but then again, I think it looks actually okay. I didn't want to play around with that too much. So I have to return back to Photoshop with the filter applied. And now the filter is applied, sorry, we now need to make the selection of what I've done. So what I did was I changed the blending mode to difference, and then I've used the black as a guide of what has not been manipulated, and that's my selection. I've then inverted this selection by pressing Control I or Shift Control I, and then what I've done is I've created I feathered the selection by 10 pixels, so it's not as hard, and you can see how that's made that change. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to expand, and I have no idea why I'm going here to pixelate or even to render. I think I just completely forgotten where I am. There we go. And just expand that by 5 pixels. Now what I'm going to do is turn this back to normal, first. And I'm going to create a new layer with the selection. And now it's just to go in, copy, create a new layer, Control J, and then paste. Now the next bit is actually you have to use an artistic filter. Now in CS6, if you can't see this, you need to go to Edit Preferences and Plugin, and then click to see all plugins. Otherwise, it will actually hide it. And now we need to go Plastic Wrap. Plastic Wrap gives us the effect of the image being basically wrapped in plastic. It looks a bit weird at the moment. Just trust me, it will look okay. So I had the strength at 16, detail at 6, and the smoothness at 11. This is already there because I did a run through before I recorded this. I then put the blending to soft light, and I just changed the opacity slightly, just to make sure that image would work. And it looks quite nice at the moment. It doesn't look overly photoshopped in a way. It does look like it has been through Photoshop, but it doesn't look too much, which is always my fear whenever I do things like this. And I don't know why I created this new layer. I think I was just going a bit crazy for a minute, so I'll just delete it again. That's no problem. Now this is really the sort of final bit, so I just convert it to a smart object. So all this is now together, and I can now just sharpen the image. And there we go. That's pretty much the final image at this point. Now this is where I would just say you could stop and leave it, because the image does look quite nice. It does have the effect that I wanted. It does look like the process has worked quite well. I think this is one of those really nice techniques where you can take an image and sort of give it a sculpting. Really, you can move things around a little bit. This would be great for landscape images where you have like lots of small details in the background. You could have a smaller brush and just put those details in, and that would look quite good as well. So it's sort of a very universal process in that way, where there's a lot of choice about the way you could actually take the image forward. I think in this image it looks quite nice. I think maybe if there was a bit more in the background, it could really stick out. That'd be quite good. The other thing I did do is I used a action which I got called Polaroid generator from raw image. I will put a link to it on the video. And what this does is it actually creates the Polaroid frame in action, and it gives all the streaking effect from when you've pulled it out. And I just did this just to sort of give it a frame and give it some sort of maybe like a bit more context. I'm not sure if it actually works any better, but I thought it was just a nice little bit of added touch to the image. I think this is the point where I maybe say that I've crossed the line a little bit, but there you go. So that's really the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something new, or you've just enjoyed watching me play around, really. Obviously, my next vlog will be on next Tuesday, and if in the meantime you can find me on my blog, which is aperture64.wordpress.com. I'm on Twitter at aperture64, on Facebook, facebook.com forward slash aperture64, and that's at 64 and spelled out. And I also have a Tumblr account now. So until next week, bye bye.